I teach this big jazz history class, and as part of the class we do a short section, two lectures on the vocal jazz. When you talk about Billie Holiday in a jazz history section, you've got to mention the song that she brought to national prominence, Strange Fruit. If anybody does not know this, stand by because it's pretty rough. It began as a poem written by Abel Maripol, a Jewish high school teacher from the Bronx, about the lynching of two black men. He published under the pen name Lewis Allen. He wrote Strange Fruit to express his horror at lynchings after seeing a photograph of the lynching of Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith in Marion, Indiana. Published the poem in 1936 in a Union magazine. He set the poem to music himself, which is a little bit unusual. It gained a certain amount of success as a protest song in and around New York. But then, Barney Josephson at the Cafe Society in Greenwich Village heard the song and gave it to Billie Holiday, who performed it in 1939. She was reluctant to sing it for a variety of reasons, but then finally gave in, and it became a regular part of her performances. Billie Holiday approached her recording label, Columbia, about recording the song. Columbia, fearing a backlash by record retailers in the South, as well as negative reaction from affiliates of Columbia's co-owned radio network, CBS, refused to record the song. Even John Hammond, Benny Goodman's manager, refused to help out. She turned to a guy named Milt Gabler, who was the uncle of comedian Billy Crystal. And his label, Commodore, produced alternative jazz. They worked out a special deal with Columbia to release her for this one song. She recorded it, and once in 39 and one in 44. It was her biggest selling record. Holiday's accompanist, Bobby Tucker, recalled that she would break down every time after she sang it. And it's basically about, it's got some pretty vivid images. As the Germans say, this is nicht für Kinder, not for children. The lyrics go, and this was written by this Jewish high school teacher from the Bronx. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and twisted mouth, scent of magnolias sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the trees to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. And it's a very slow ballad, and it takes a lot of concentration to listen to this. And I will tell you that I've got a bunch of youngsters in the class who, for them, lynching is just something they've read about in history books. And there were two young students in tears when this was over, because it's so powerful. The song was said to become the anthem for the anti-lynching movement. So did it change people's perceptions? Probably. Did it change legislation? No, because in 1944 there was federal legislation to make lynching a federal crime, and it was filibustered and never came to vote. And if you've seen the movie Lady Sings the Blues with Diana Ross, in that movie it's presented as Billie Holiday's composition, and she came up with it after stumbling upon a lynching. That's Hollywood. That is not factual, but it is great for the story. When in reality, she knew about lynching. It would be impossible to be a black person in Harlem, where she grew up, and not know of this lynching movement in this part of the country. But the fact she never saw one, and she never acknowledged Maripol for his contribution. She claimed to have written the song. So what we'll discuss later is, how important was this? Social change? Does social change equal legislation? I'm not sure. Let's talk about another piece that's a little bit more humorous than this previous one. Charlie on the MTA. Does anybody know it?
Yes.
Okay. 1948. It's sometimes called the MTA song. The song lyrics tell of Charlie, a man who gets aboard an MTA subway car. In in the 40s, the Boston subway system wanted to increase fares. And for some bureaucratic, administrative reason that I no longer can understand, they decided, we're not going to raise the fare to get on the train, but you have to pay a nickel to get off. So it went from 10 cents to 15 cents. Charlie got on the train and didn't have the nickel. So the song goes, he goes around and around and around. For he never could get off the train. Did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Charlie handed in, let me tell you a story of a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day. He put 10 cents in his pocket, kissed his wife and family, and went to ride on the MTA. Charlie handed in his dime at the Kendall Square station, and he changed for Jamaica Plain. When he got there, the conductor told him one more nickel. Charlie could not get off that train, and then comes the chorus. The next verse is, now all night long, Charlie rides through the tunnel saying, what will become of me? Crying, how can I afford to see my sister in Chelsea or my cousin in Roxbury? Charlie's wife goes down to the Scully Square station every day at 2:15, and through the open window, she hands Charlie a sandwich as the train comes rumbling through. I'm not quite sure why she just didn't give him a nickel. As his train rolled on underneath Greater Boston, Charlie looked around and sighed, well, I'm sore and disgusted and I'm absolutely busted. I guess this is my last long ride. Now, you citizens of Boston, don't you think it's a scandal that the people have to pay and pay? Vote for Walter A. O'Brien. Fight the fare increase, and fight the fare increase. Vote for George O'Brien. Get poor Charlie off the MTA. It was a political song written for a guy named O'Brien who was part of a progressive movement, progressive party. And it actually, the music came from an old folk song from the 19th century called The Wreck of the Old 97. They just rewrote the lyrics. So, I don't know what it's like, what it costs to ride the subway in Boston now, but Charlie on the MTA was a specific piece designed to elect someone, maybe not change legislation, but they were trying to effect social change through this song. And I was observing a class today of Brett Boutwell who was talking about American music, and one of the handouts was Solidarity Forever, which was probably the most famous Union song ever written. Lyrics put to the music of the melody of John Brown's Body, which is sort of closely related to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And interestingly enough, the guy who wrote the lyrics later expressed disdain for the movement it had spawned. Because he says, I'm sorry I ever did this because what it has created has been union bosses who are as corrupt as the businesses we were trying to, overcome. So again, the music or the lyric. Remember, so far all we've talked about has been the text, the lyric, the spoken word doing this. Is it always that way? Can music be used as a political pawn? And the question, and the event that I've discovered or remembered and decided, let's just throw this out and see if we can pin this down as being effective. In 2001, the famous conductor of the Chicago Symphony, Daniel Barenboim, was conducting a concert in Jerusalem, and as an encore, asked the audience if he could perform Wagner. He wanted to do the overture to Tristan. The audience erupted with great protests. Many people stormed out calling him a fascist. Other people stayed because they